Let's talk about 3 reasons why you can't get over it. So, all of us have been through an experience that was really hard to get over, whether it was a breakup or having to leave a job or getting let go from a job or some sort of situation with our children, like something that we've had to get over. And getting over things is hard. Like we start to go through the spiral of thinking of things over and over again. We go down the rabbit hole of researching why things have happened, and we start to think like, why is something bad always happening to me? Why are these type of things always happening to me? And there's a reason why all of that happens. And the first reason is it hurt your ego. So when we're thinking about ego, not as like the I'm a cocky type of person, but ego being that part of you that is trying to keep you safe and has learned conditioning throughout your life. If the thing that you experience, let's say it was a breakup, hurts your ego, it makes you feel like you're not worthy. It makes you feel like you couldn't measure up. It makes you feel like that person didn't see in you the value that you see in yourself. That hurts your ego. And it might speak to some sort of core belief that maybe you're not good enough. The same thing can be true if the job situation happens that I expressed earlier. So you get let go from a job, or your boss is a jerk, or whatever the case is. Some sort of core belief that you've had since you were a child tells you that there's this thing that's wrong with you. So you spend a lifetime trying to prove that that thing isn't true. All the while you're meditating on the fact that you're going to prove that it's not true. And so more examples of it will become prevalent because it's the thing that you're focusing on and thinking about. So when we go through something hard, when we go through the pain of something, the first thing we have to do to get over it is to understand what our ego is trying to do. So when you have that experience and you say, okay, this means that I'm not good enough, this means that I don't measure up, you have to really check your ego and say, actually, that's not what it means. It may mean some other things. It may mean that I need to do some healing and do some work on myself in a relationship. It may mean that that person wasn't for me, and that's okay. It doesn't speak to who I am as a person. It just speaks to how that relationship aligns with myself and my life. So when you do that, then your ego doesn't really control your emotions. You can step outside of it, take a balcony view of what your ego is actually telling you, use it as data, and say, okay, it did hurt my ego, and here's why. Here's a belief that I've had or some conditioning that was programmed into me, and that thing is being triggered by this thing that just happened. And take that data and do something with it. So if the core belief is that you're not enough, figure out ways to make sure that you feel like you are. Whether that's journaling, going to therapy, whatever it is, you have to fix that core belief in order for your ego to not feel like it has to protect it. The second reason why is because you've given the person or the thing too much power. So a lot of times when we're experiencing something big, when we ruminate on it the way that we do, we're giving that person so much focus, or that thing so much focus, that it literally has control and power over our entire life. And so when you give that thing so much power, of course, you're not going to be able to get over it, because you're thinking, okay, I wonder what they're thinking about me. I wonder why they did this thing to me. I wonder what they really thought when this happened or when this happened. And so we go through all of the scenarios that happen inside of that time period, and we start to ruminate on why that person might have reacted the way they did, or what it was about us. And we're giving them so much power to define us and to dictate the scenario that we forget that we were part of it too. So in order for that to not happen, and in order for you to get past it, you have to take back your power. And you have to say things like, I'm not really sure what they were thinking because I'm not in their head. But what I believe to be true and what I perceive in that situation is this, and that's what I'm going to hold on to. It's the difference between saying, oh, my boss fired me because I'm not a good employee and I don't bring value to a company, and saying, I know that I'm a good employee and I know that I bring value to a company. Here's all of the reasons why I believe that to be true, and holding on to that, because then that will propel you into the next thing that is for your life. And if you don't do that, then you're going to continue to fester on it, and you won't be able to get over it because you're giving so much power to the perspective of the other person instead of actually considering your own. And the last reason why you can't get over it is because oftentimes we prefer and gravitate toward the familiar. So if that relationship is something that you've experienced before, and maybe it is a direct mirror of a relationship that you've experienced in the past, fear sets in and we say, okay, I'm never going to be able to find someone. I'm never going to be able to be in a healthy relationship. And we internalize those things as true because the familiar was being in that situation, knowing that it wasn't making me happy, as opposed to going out, being fearful of maybe I'm going to be single for a while, or maybe I'm not going to be able to find this person who checks off all these things on my list, and maybe I'll have to change some of those, but doing it anyway. Being brave enough to say, this isn't serving me, and I can still be brave enough to be single for a while or go out and believe and have faith in what's best for me will come to me. When we prefer the familiar, we stay in spaces that we don't belong in, and then we don't understand why that space didn't receive us, as opposed to saying, okay, this is familiar, but it also might be toxic because home to me feels like toxicity. This is familiar, but it might be controlling because home to me feels like having somebody that's controlling. And the only way that we can get over it is to say, I no longer want what's familiar. I'm willing to get uncomfortable, to go into spaces that actually serve me as opposed to being where I am. So essentially what I'm saying is, the way to get over something is to stop ruminating on those same thoughts that you had before and to meditate on things that are actually going to take you to the space that you deserve to be in. This is Carrie Nicole. Thank you for listening. Look me up on all social media sites and tune in to my YouTube channel at Carrie Nicole and my podcast, The Peace Podcast.